yes, we can get tired in life, but I think it's important that we keep the focus, and that's the one thing is if we're really trying to be obedient and in touch with what God has planned for us, then we're not going to be as focused on ourselves and our own comfort all the time. And, and even in difficult times or challenging times, those are opportunities to learn and grow. And I am getting those every single day, and so just to be able to go, okay, what would you have me learn from this, because that's what we're here for. And to be able to serve, I think even if you're retired, I one day if and when I retire, I don't think I would stop serving.
Welcome to the Age of Lions podcast, a platform and community dedicated to bringing purpose, strategy, and calling to kingdom-minded people who are 50 plus and excited about their next chapter. Here's your host, Mark Clement.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Age of Lions podcast. So great to see you today. That is our special guest today, Wendy Garner. Wendy is a longtime friend of mine and an incredible leader in her own right and has some incredible things to share with you guys today. Before we get into that, I want to just remind you to make sure that whatever platform you're enjoying this on, to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to join the conversation. We are all on this journey together and we want to know what you think. This is not all about me or what I'm doing or what I want to do. I really want to hear back from you. The comments we're getting are amazing. The conversations we're having with people in person and online, it's been really amazing. What I'm really fascinated by is how many people not just mention that they're watching and listening, but how they are deep diving. They're quoting things back to us. They're talking about the episodes when so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. And it's really amazing how God is using it to really touch people and challenge people and inspire people. So if you're one of those people, let us know because we want to hear from you and we want to know how it's touching you and how we can do it even better. Like I said, today's guest is Wendy Garner. If you're a Birmingham, Alabama person, you might remember Wendy. Years ago, she was one of our news anchors on one of the local stations and was extremely popular and loved. And a lot of people, she talks on the podcast today about how people remind her of when she was pregnant, with her kids on the air and all this stuff. And then she's had an amazing career as a producer. That's actually how I know her. We did a lot of work together over the years with different clients, and she would bring my company in to produce videos and different projects for different companies. And I got to be really good friends with her, and she's a wonderful, wonderful lady. And now she's made this incredible switch to being the executive director of a really awesome nonprofit based out of Birmingham called On River Time, and she'll talk more about that as well. And just how she's been on this journey of following what God's leading her to do is really going to challenge you. Her mindset about parenting kids who are now out of the house, empty nesting, parenting grown kids, making life decisions, following God. She's really bringing powerful word today. So I can't wait for you to hear that from her. So let's get into it. Let's listen to Wendy Garner. Hey, Wendy Garner, how are you?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm so well. It's so good to see you. It's been years since we've seen each other face to face.
I know. It's so great to reconnect. But thank you for having me.
Yeah. I was telling the audience before you got on just that we had done some work together, and a lot of them, if they're local, they know you probably from the past, from when you were on television, and so
it's like Nine Lives.
It really is, which is exactly why you're on here. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about all your different iterations because that's sort of the point. But I really wanted you to come on because of that career and because of the different things you've done, and you've been very brave and bold and trying new things and stretching yourself. And as you know, that's kind of the whole point of this podcast, is just to challenge those of us who are kind of in that 50 plus category to keep growing, keep stretching, keep changing, keep reaching for new things. And so I thought, what a perfect example you would be for that.
Well, as we said before we recorded, I don't feel like I'm qualified because I've listened to a few of your podcasts and they're excellent. But thank you so much for having me. And I'm really, really honored to be part of it. Thank you, Mark.
Well, thanks for saying that. And I'm really honored that you said yes. So we'll bask in the honor and we'll just keep moving. So as you know, we like to always ask everybody, the first question is sort of the same. And that is, at what point in life Where were you? What was going on when you kind of had that realization of, I might feel young and I've got a young mindset and I'm healthy and life is good, but I'm getting a little older. Like I'm starting to, I'm aware of it. What was that moment for you?
Well, when you have kids, they certainly remind you every step of the way, especially as they're entering their middle and high school years, that you're out of touch and you're not relevant anymore. But I'm just kidding. I have two boys. They are now 24 and 22. When I was in television, I still get comments of people who remember me being pregnant with them on the air. So they've seemed to grow up fast, and they're just awesome young men, and I'm just super proud of them. But I think really, the recognition for me, and parenting is so interesting. I think the hardest part about parenting is that you learn to do it differently in every stage, because you're slowly pulling away, which is what God intended, so that they can get their own wings. And I think the realization really hits home, or it did for me, with them going to college, and you're just not only not as present in their lives, but it's important that they figure this out on their own anyways. And there's going to be mistakes. But I mean, looking back, I just thank God that they are living their lives in a completely different way than I was at their, I'm so proud of them. And I think the truly amazing thing is to see them start to make their own decisions. And when you give them the freedom to make their own decisions and you're not like overbearing, and then you're like, wow, they did it because it's what they believe in. And to see those values mirror your own values without your constant, that's just one of the sweetest rewards to me.
Yeah, it really is. We had a guest on a couple months ago. She's a marriage and family therapist, and we were kind of talking about parenting. And she talked about, Sarah Hadgraft is her name, and she was talking about how you go from a parent to a consultant. You really become kind of that second level. You're like a coach now. They call you when they need you. They're not calling you for every little thing. And it is such a paradigm shift in the relationship. Because,
and there's some growing pains in all of that.
Oh yeah, for you and for them.
Yes, as you learn to figure it out. Right, absolutely.
Yeah. And just trying to make those decisions about, do I step in? Do I not step in? What's how much should I be? All those things. It's people often joke about there's no real. I mean, there's books, but there's not really a guide to parenting, because every kid is different, every parent is different, and is
lots of prayer. Lots of prayer.
Yes. Drive you to your knees is what we like to say.
Absolutely.
How do you feel different as you're getting a little older, like compared to yourself maybe 15, 20 years ago? What changes are you noticing? Maybe it's the attitude, maybe it's physical. Like what's different as you're getting older?
Well, I mean, I think one thing is that I feel like for me personally, I just feel a little more settled and centered, and just kind of knowing what matters in life, and really wanting to invest more in the people who are, I mean, you've got these circles and they're all really important, but I mean, just, my marriage, my children, my grown children now, my job, what I'm doing, now, my employees, like there's these things that I just want to make sure that I'm investing in more. And so I think I'm more intentional about that. And then also, I'm an introvert by trade, by nature, Mark. And so just quiet time to me. Just yesterday, I was just sort of working with all this stuff in my head. And I was like, we just recently moved to a community where you have walking trails nearby. And so I'm like, I just need to get up early and go walk in the woods and pray. And I mean, it was like I was a new person after that. I know what I need. I think that's it. I know now more what I need, and I'm able to just take that time, and then I can come back in and hopefully be more of my whole self. So,
Yeah. And I don't know if you found this to be true, but there's something about that rest time, that reinvesting in yourself, the quiet time. If you're a person of faith, spending time with God, spending time in nature, spending time alone, just meditating, and whatever that is for people, it's just such a game changer. Mm-hmm. And I know that as I've gotten older, I've learned that too. It's like, I can burn the candle at both ends for a season, for a window. Sometimes you have to do that, or life requires it for whatever reason. But there are moments when it's like, I can't function the way I need to unless I take that time. I'm a better husband. I'm a better friend. Right. I'm a better father. All the things are affected by it. Right. And I know sometimes as parents, especially, we feel selfish, like, well, I don't need to take time for me. I'm just trying to take care of everybody else. But you can't really do it unless you take care of yourself first. It's the whole put the mask on before you put the mask on.
Absolutely. We were joking this summer, we would have friends that would want to get together, and I would joke and tell my husband, tell them that I can't because I'm watching the hummingbirds. That's a sign of getting old.
Yeah. Well, it's also that introvert thing. Exactly. Yeah. You've probably seen the stuff on Enneagram. It jokes about, or not Enneagram, Instagram. Right. And it says, the introvert, they get the call and the friend says, hey, I can't make it. And it's like, good, I didn't want to go anyway. It's so
but I love you.
Yeah, I love you. And I would have been happy to see you, but I'm fine if we don't. Yes. My wife and I talk about that. Just today, we were like, man, we have tonight and tomorrow night with no events, nothing to go do, nothing with school, with the kids, with Rivers. Like you just relish those moments of just, even if you've got work to do or homework to do. She's getting her master's right now, so she's always got homework. But it's like just being able to be home for one night and not have to go anywhere is such a win.
Yeah.
What I've always liked about you is you're very intentional. You're very strategic. You're always thinking and processing and kind of planning, and you're kind of very aware of where you're going. So, as you're getting older, what are you doing to invest in yourself besides quiet time and taking care of that? But like when you think about the next 10 or 20 years, I know you well enough to know that you're not planning on stopping anytime soon. You're a doer. And so what are you doing to kind of invest in yourself so that you're able to do that for a long time? How are you taking care of yourself that way?
Yeah, I would say I probably am more intentional, like you said, than strategic necessarily, because I definitely try to enter into things with open hands, just really being prayerful about what the Lord would have me to do. But I do also see, especially now being a relatively new empty nester, that this is an opportunity for us to kind of focus on ourselves, our marriage, take care of ourselves. I mentioned to you that we just downsized, and that was huge because we had been in the same house since my oldest was 7 months old. We were there 22 years. And so that was kind of a big deal, but it was just the opportunity to get rid of the things that don't matter and keep and focus and know where the stuff that is valuable is. There was just kind of and I am a very sentimental person. So, I think my husband thought I was losing my mind when that was maybe my midlife crisis. We're using 3 rooms. We don't need this. And, it served us well. And there's been joy in this new season for sure.
Yeah. So speaking of empty nesting, definitely something that's kind of unique to folks in our age range. And that starts to happen, and the kids, move on, and all the things we've talked about. Was that something that you were really mindful about and kind of prepared for? And I know you can't fully prepare because you don't know till you know. But were you kind of thinking about it as it was getting closer, or did it just kind of hit you like all of a sudden it's happened and it's now what do I do? Which camp were you in?
I think I was definitely mindful because I just could not stop counting in my head how many summers were left with the kids. I constantly, it was like this countdown that I was constantly processing, and then just hearing the importance of investing in your marriage, to be prepared for that season. And so I think we've done it well. I know the first 6 months we both would say, it was just hard. You're just sad. It's new. It's a new normal, kind of like having a new baby. It's a new normal. But it's just been a really sweet season too. And then, it's hard to say goodbye. And I might hold on a little too long for my sons, at that goodbye. But it's so neat to see them. And you see how much they've grown over and matured in the 4 years that if they're, away at a 4-year university, you see the growth, you see all of those things. And so that's the reward.
What was there anything about that transition that surprised you, that you weren't ready for or didn't expect, that caught you by surprise?
Well, there was one period of time where Cole, our oldest, he graduated. He went to Berry College. My younger one's at Auburn right now. And we had just moved to this, much smaller house. And he said, I think I'm going to live at home for a year to save money. And I'm like, well, you just lost your basement, So
right.
There were definitely some little growing pains there. But it was also just a really sweet season because, the grown child comes home and reverts to acting like they're still in high school. They're comfortable and they're with mom and dad. And then, the adult is guilty of treating them like they're still in high school. And so we had to have some conversations about that. And then before long, he's like making dinner for us once a week. And, it just was this really, it ended up being a really neat season, even though we were all so close together, which was different. And now he's living closer to downtown Birmingham with some guys and loves it. And we see him, once a week or every 2 weeks. And so it's been really nice to see that relationship grow. But I would say that's what probably was the biggest surprise for me is how much I had to learn, I mean, I really, in terms of, okay, you're an adult now. You're right. You're an adult now. So.
Yeah. It's like having a roommate more than a kid at home.
Yeah.
It's like you have a renter in your bedroom.
Absolutely.
I remember when COVID happened and we had kids kind of scattered around the country. And so several of them came home for a season. And of course we had 2 still at home in school. So they're here. And then a sister who's away in California in school, she comes home. And then the brother who's at Auburn, he comes home. And so the house got very full very fast. And of course it was extreme circumstances because you couldn't really go out as much as you wanted to.
Right.
But I do remember there was sort of the shock of it. Like it wasn't planned. Obviously no one had planned for that, sort of similar to when they come home unexpectedly. But like you, we kind of pivoted very quickly to, hey, let's enjoy this. This is a window that we have and we don't know how long it's going to last. It probably is the last time that at least this many of the kids will be in one place at one time. So,
absolutely.
As hard of a season as it was for so many people, and I don't ever want to minimize that at all.
Right.
But just for us personally, it was kind of a sweet time in that way, just because you had that opportunity to kind of one more rodeo, so to speak, of us kind of being in the house together. And, you get it at holidays for a couple of days or whatever, but to have a few months like that was really, and invest. And just the kind of conversations you have too when they're older is so, I find more rewarding. I'm not a great little kid person, So once they get to be about high school or college and they can kind of give as good as they get and have fun with you and be a smart aleck and all that stuff. It's a lot more, that's kind of my language, but it's so much fun to be able to have those kinds of relationships with them where they become, you're always their parent, but you also become kind of a friend,
Absolutely.
So super fun.
That's
well,
awesome.
one thing that's really been fascinating to me, and the way we know each other, of course, is we did work together on some projects in the creative world for a couple of years. And had some really challenging projects that we did together.
And you do excellent work.
Oh, thank you. I won't drop any names, but we had some demanding clients. We'll just put it that way. And it was an interesting season. Yeah, that's right. And had fun with it. But it was really interesting to me when I heard, probably through social media or whatever, but I saw that you had taken on this new role. And so you'd gone from, television personality and kind of had a career in, I guess you would call that broadcast journalism, and then pivoted to being a producer yourself and doing a lot of independent creative projects. So how did you go from that to now running a nonprofit? I'd love for you to talk and tell everybody what the nonprofit is and kind of what you guys do, but tell that story of how that happened. And I love what you were telling me earlier about how you stepped into that and how God kind of led you through it. Share that with everybody. That was really fascinating.
Thank you. So currently I'm the executive director of a nonprofit that's based in Birmingham called On River Time. And we partner with group children's homes to serve the kids in their care, including Big Oak Ranch in Alabama, Palmer Home in Mississippi, and Still Creek Ranch in Texas. And the On River Time, it was founded by a man, Steve Davis, who's an avid fly fisherman and also a victim of abuse as a child. And so we take these kids on these fly fishing camps, if you will, but it also includes whitewater rafting and hiking in addition to the fly fishing, and then a lot of really important moments of going deep. And they're never required to share their circumstances, but they're all victims of abuse and neglect. And it's an opportunity to just let them know that God has a plan for their lives and they're not defined by what happened to them in the past, and just that they have people in their corner who care about them. And so that's my greatest privilege, is like we get to be like extended family to these kids that are living in these group children's homes that have incredible family at those children's homes as well, in terms of their house parents and their directors and staff. And so when they come to camp, it's not a one and done experience. We stay involved in their lives and we visit them throughout the year. We do different programming. We do mock interviews. We do resume assistance, etiquette classes, just different things. We're getting ready to do Christmas dinners with them, and we give them gift cards. And they're just the most amazing kids. And it is such a privilege to be able to partner with these incredible homes and serve these kids. They're incredible.
Wow. So how did that come about? Yeah.
Yeah. So how it came to be, when we were doing work together, I was just, my background had been in television, and it was kind of more like the PR, video production, helping to tell the story of whether it was a small business or a nonprofit. And that was the majority of, I guess, the clients that I was working with. And I happened to be approached by Steve saying he was looking for a new executive director. And we had gone to lunch together, and I said, I gave him the name of someone else because I just, that's not my background. That's not my experience. And to me, that is loaded. Like, I would not want to enter into something that important without, taking it very seriously. So, I passed along someone else's name, and he said, that's not what I had in mind. And he had written a book about his story, picking butter beans. And I took it home and I read it, and I just prayed. And I realized, and I think that's the sweet thing with going through seasons of life and the variety and the importance of learning at every stage you go. I remember back in television, people would not want to learn new skills, but everything was changing so fast. I don't want to learn something new. That's too hard. But when you're learning new things, it's like God is preparing you for the next chapter of your life. And I realized, okay, I have a lot to learn, and this is a tall order. However, I can help tell the story. I've been doing some work for some nonprofits that are incredible, and I learned a lot about what's important, charity watchdog groups and making sure that your ratings are good and all of those things. And so, I accepted it, and I just did it with open hands. Like, okay, Lord, this is not something that I'm necessarily capable of in my own strength. And, so I started in 2019. I was the only full-time employee. And I have Beth Plummer, who's actually a few years older than me. So it's interesting. We have this conversation because she's an empty nester too. And, we both have the time and the energy and also the experience and hopefully, Lord willing, some wisdom, to make good choices. But now we're a team of 4, and we've just been blessed with incredible donors who've supported us every year, and we're looking at opportunities for being able to serve more kids in the very near future as well. So it's been an incredible privilege, and I've learned a lot. And I really think that God was just bringing me right to this. I can't claim any credit for it at all.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that about you, but I do want to say, you do get credit for being obedient. I think, that's the part I think that we're required when God's leading us to do something. And do we say yes or no? I mean, are we willing to step out? And, it says a lot about you that you were willing to do that. You're not old by any stretch of the imagination, but you're older and you've had a career and you had success and you were probably pretty comfortable, in what you were doing. You were really good at it, had a lot of experience. A lot of times when we have these conversations, people will, I get this comment a lot because I've done a couple of new things in the last few years. When I went to Highlands College, that was a big career shift. And then,
yes, you have.
Just like you, had never done anything like that before, and then left that to now start another company and then start this podcast. And I've never shied away from starting new things, but I am, I've told the story on here a couple of times, but like when I started my company again, I knew what it was going to take to do it. I knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to be a grind for a year or two to get things moving again. And I knew I could do it, but there was that question of, do I want to do this again? Do I want to invest that much time? Do I want to work that hard? And people often seem amazed by that are our age or older. They seem sometimes shocked by it, like they could never do that. And I always try to tell them, no, you could absolutely do anything that God is putting on your plate. What do you say to people when you get those questions? Because I'm sure you've had people go, I could never do that. I could never make that change. I could never shift careers. What would you encourage them to think about when they're going through that process?
Well, I mean, I really don't hear that as much anymore, Mark. I mean, because it just seems like things are different than they used to be. I mean, when you hear someone who's been in a corporate setting for 30 years, that's like a huge accomplishment also, so I haven't really encountered that. But I don't know. I think that, yes, we can get tired in life, but I think it's important that we keep the focus, and that's the one thing is if we're really trying to be obedient and in touch with what God has planned for us, then we're not going to be as focused on ourselves and our own comfort all the time. And, and even in difficult times or challenging times, those are opportunities to learn and grow. And I am getting those every single day, and so just to be able to go, okay, what would you have me learn from this, because that's what we're here for. And to be able to serve, I mean, I think even if you're retired, I one day, if and when I retire, I don't think I would stop serving.
Yeah.
Because that's, that's what we're here for, I think.
That's right. Yeah, we say on here a lot that purpose doesn't have an expiration date. Calling doesn't have an expiration date,
Right.
And it's such a sad story. And we've all seen this before when people get older and they kind of stop giving, stop serving, stop contributing. They don't go out anymore. They stay in their house. And you could just see the decline.
Social media worries me with that. I mean, that's, really, I mean, it's just,
Yeah, I think they call it a death scroll for a reason.
Right.
You start spiraling down those holes and people get very isolated.
Right.
And it's just a recipe for unhappiness and a recipe for unhealth.
Yeah.
And so, I'm with you. And I think everybody we've had on here, and that's one of the reasons I've chosen who I've chosen, is because these are people who are like, hey, I'm not going quietly into the night. Like I'm going to fight and work and give all I have for as long as I possibly can. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but I find myself having kind of started this new venture again, the purpose and the excitement that I feel, the energy that I feel, like, yes, it's hard. And yes, I'm tired sometimes and all this stuff. That's just normal. But also I'm more excited. I'm more energized. I feel more purposeful. Do you feel that same way with your thing? You seem so passionate about it. I have to imagine that's a yes.
Well, I mean, if met the kid and you've met one of our young people who's now a successful adult in her own right, but they're just so inspirational. So you just really can't help it. I mean, it's what we do is really to serve them and give them the opportunity. Mark, I was thinking, going back to what you were talking about just a moment ago, though, I remember being a younger mom with kids like on Little League or, at the ballpark. And I came from a divorced family. And so I was a latchkey kid, single mom, all of those circumstances. I was also an only child. So there was a lot of time just being alone, which is maybe why I like hummingbirds too. But I remember, and it just blew me away to be at the ballpark and see grandparents that were coming to every game of their grandchild. And I thought, they think they're coming just to support their grandchild, but how they pour into us, the other parents, our kids, they may not be there necessarily intentionally doing that. But there was one man who's since passed away, and he became like a second dad to Tim, my husband, who lost his dad tragically before we met. And so I think that was such a great learning opportunity to me as a younger mom to see the importance of that older generation pouring into not only the kids, grandkids, and their friends, but also the younger adults as well. And so that was just such an excellent example for me. And then today with On River Time, John Croyle founded Big Oak Ranch in, I believe it was 1974. I think they've had 2,000 kids under their care, under their watch. John and T. I just love Miss T. And they come to camp with us. And I remember Miss T saying, I feel like I'm not relevant anymore. And I don't know if I can keep up. And she is probably not quite 20 years older than me. And, but then to see the kids revolve around them and how much they love being around them, and the importance of that grandparent figure that John and T provide to the kids at Big Oak Ranch. To witness that is a constant encouragement to me of the importance of continuing on. Yeah,
that's such a good encouragement. There's a guy I've got coming on here in a few weeks. His name is Chris Bruno, and he's written a book called Sage. And Sage is all about, it's kind of geared towards men, but it's true for men and women as they get to a certain age and they start to become more of that grandparent type of figure, whether it's in their own actual family or for others or whatever. And, all through traditional storytelling, you'll have those figures, like in Lord of the Rings, it's Gandalf, and in, the Star Wars stuff, it's the Obi-Wan Kenobi or whatever. There's always that older man or woman who's sort of the sage that's pouring in. And, you talk about relevance, and I think so many times we tie that to culture, or am I hip to what's going on, or, up with all the latest lingo and all the stuff. And there's a version of it that is that. But relevance in that role, I think, is what you're saying. It's very different. It's really about, am I pouring into people? Is it wisdom? Is it encouragement? Is it just a positive support? Like there's so much we can bring to the table. And I think sometimes as people get older too, they think, well, no one wants what I have. They're not asking for it. They're not coming to me. That might be true, but I think we have a responsibility to bring that to the table. Don't wait to be asked. Don't wait to be given an invitation. Like just step into that role that God has provided for you. And you don't have to be nosy. You don't have to be intrusive. You don't have to be pushy, but you can be present.
You just care. Just care.
Yeah, you just care.
You care. Right.
And so many times people, that's what they want. They just want somebody to be there with them to add the comfort of presence. It's not always about words or what's said. It's just about being there with people, whether it's through hard times or just, whatever. Because everybody, my wife and I talk about this a lot, but so many people are hurting. There's just so much pain in the world, and there's family issues and health issues, and on and on it goes. And people are just so hungry for someone just to care about them, even if, again, you don't have to say anything, just be around them. And I think a lot of times as people get older, they miss that opportunity, and they miss their purpose because they're thinking, well, that's not important enough, or I'm not relevant enough.
I'm not important enough. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not true. It's not true.
Yeah. And also it shouldn't be about us anyway. It should be about the other people. How are we helping the others around us?
That's right.
So
good.
Well, speaking of sages and older people, even than us, who's influencing your life? Who are you learning from? Who's somebody that's like that in your life? And you can say a name or not, but just I'd love to hear you describe someone who's really pouring into you that way.
Right. Well, certainly I became a believer as a young adult, and I definitely credit at our local church here in Birmingham, I was surrounded by incredible wise women that I learned so much from and looked up to, and just really kind of gave me, I guess, that hunger for discipleship a little bit more. But today I probably would say, I'm around people more so that are younger, I guess, but like Miss T is certainly a great example. I love to spend time with her. So, yeah.
What are some things you're learning from her?
I think just like we just talked about, just watching how the young people respond to her. And I think it's that reminder that, because who we're working with is mostly teenagers, college age. And, like you said, you feel like you have to be relevant or hip or whatever else. But, especially for these kids, they just, sometimes need a family figure, because they've had a lot of that taken away from them. So just to see, just that presence. I think just that presence is so important, and faithfulness, just being faithful, even, as things get harder or going through difficult times, or, just continue to be faithful. I think one thing that comes with being a little bit older, thinking about this, is that it's kind of like the highs aren't as high necessarily and the lows aren't as low. When you experience those lows after you've experienced hard things in life, you can step back and say, okay, God, what are you trying to teach in this? And the highs, if you're given this incredible opportunity, there's an opportunity to face it with reverence. I want to make sure that I'm doing this well. So I think age can help to even that out just a little bit, and going back to, holding everything with open hands and just trusting, whatever you would have me do for this season, I will do. Yeah,
absolutely. My wife and I were talking about this. She was actually the guest on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and that was super fun. But we were just talking about that open-handedness and talking about that level of obedience and just kind of being willing to say almost on a daily basis, what do you want me to do today? Am I in the right place? Am I following you the right way?
Right.
And all the things that go with that. It's so important. You mentioned your faith, and you talked about the discipleship aspect of your life. One thing I think that's been interesting is, as we get older, and we're growing, and like you said, in wisdom and knowledge and all the things that go along with that, hopefully, what are some things that you've been learning from a faith perspective as you've gotten older? What maybe has changed in the way you approach your faith? Changed? What have you learned? I'd love to hear what your experience has been in that lane.
For me, I think one of the blessings that having, not being in the busyness of raising kids and all of that is I remember specifically praying a few years ago that God would give me more of a desire to read His Word and to be in His Word. And He does. He just does, same with ask for wisdom and you'll receive it. Like I really cherish that time. Like we had talked about, the quiet time. I've had an opportunity to do a lot more reading than I had before. And then it's funny, I'll be reading a book and then it'll give references to other books. And I just, so I think there's just been a lot of opportunity. I'm very boring, Mark. Could you tell? No, but there's just been more of that opportunity to just, kind of grow closer to him, and just a desire to be more like Jesus.
Yeah, for sure. It is interesting how as life gets a little quieter, and it's not, I know you've got parts of your life that aren't very quiet because you're still so busy and active and growing. But yeah, your home can get quiet, kids are gone, or even our 15-year-old, I mean, he's not here as much as he used to be. He's got friends. We live in a great walkable neighborhood like you do. They're out all the time, and they can walk down to the downtown Homewood or do whatever and have fun. And so, yeah, it's really interesting how that changes. And
Yes.
we talk about that a lot, my wife and I, about the word, and about just, what I love about God's word is that you just can't ever learn it all. Even if you've been a student of it your whole life, it's alive and active, as Scripture tells us, and it's you can read the same passage you've read 100 times, and God can show you something completely different about it. There's an exercise I'm going to do this next year, and this is as good a time as any to kind of announce this. We're going to talk about it. I think we're going to have an episode kind of focused on grandparenting at some point, but the regular listeners will remember a couple months ago, we had a guy named Jim Shepard, who's one of my mentors, older guys in his 70s. And he was talking about grandparenting, and I was sharing that I was going to be a grandparent, like I was telling you earlier. And he talked about how one thing he got this from somebody else, but every year he gets a new Bible, and he does a daily Bible reading that takes him through the whole Bible, a Bible in a year, whatever you call that. And it's like a study Bible, so it's got margins, and he's writing in the margins every day as he's doing it, notes to his grandchildren. And so he's doing one Bible for each of his six grandchildren. He might have more later.
That's awesome.
And he's on his second or third year. Yeah, and this blew me away. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do that.
Wow.
Because again, you're looking at it now through even another lens that maybe you haven't looked at it before, at least as a first-time grandparent. Right. So I'm excited to say, I might read some passages I've seen so many times, but what is that saying to me that I can pass on to this young person as they get older? Maybe they're a teenager when we give it to them. That's awesome. But yeah, it's just amazing how God's word speaks to us that way and shows us so much. It just never does get old.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation. The last thing I want to ask you, just as kind of a parting word, for the people who are listening, who are older, and then most of them are, that's kind of the whole point. What encouragement or advice would you give them as they're kind of thinking about their future, their next decade, their next 2 decades, 3 decades, whatever? What would you encourage them to be doing if they're not really sure where they're going with that? What would you tell them to say, hey, you have an opportunity here?
I just feel like regardless of what role you're in, if you're still in the workplace or if you're not in the workplace anymore, just looking for opportunities to serve. I think one thing that's new in my current position now with employees, I never sought out to be a manager of other people, but, to be a servant manager, that I definitely, don't get that right all the time, but just, that's my heart's desire, really. Especially because they're younger and want to prepare them. But even if you're retired or you're stepping away, or if you've been a stay-at-home mom and now the kids are gone and you're trying to find your place, I think just looking for opportunities to serve and not taking yourself out of the ring. I think just, like what we had talked about before with those older, you may not realize the difference that you're making in someone else's life, but you could probably look back and remember when someone else was making that difference in yours. And so I think it's the reminder that you might be that for someone else. And I don't think we necessarily see it when we're in it. But it's, it's just that planting the seed, really, and just being an encouragement to others. And, I just think that's what we're here for. We're here to serve one another. And, it's such a busy, hectic world. And like you mentioned, so many people are hurting, but we definitely have that opportunity really at any age. Teenagers have that opportunity as well, or children, so, but anyway, And I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing, Mark. I love that you are taking this opportunity to pour into others by bringing in much more talented speakers than myself.
I receive all of that.
I love it. I love it.
Well, I appreciate that. I received that, except for the part that you're not qualified. That's not true. But it has been really interesting, the comments that we get, whether it's through the socials or on the people who subscribe to the things or whatever, or just people I run into that I know. But what's been fascinating about this is how many people have said, I'm just so glad somebody is talking about this. Not that this is this massive monumental thing, but it is a shift in our lives, a new season that we're in. And, when I started it wasn't because I was the expert and I was going to tell everybody how to do it. It was like, no, I want to interview people so I can learn how to do it well. I want to grow old well. I want to work for a long time and be effective for a long time and make a difference for a long time. I'm 57, just turned 57 in September, and I feel like I'm just getting started. Like I still feel like there's so much in front of me. Right. And I want other people to have that same experience because like you, like me, like other people who we've had on here who've said, I'm willing to do something new. I'm willing to try something different. It's so incredibly rewarding when you're doing it with the right reasons, the right heart. You're trying to serve other people, and you really are just trying to make a difference for the better, for the kingdom. It's incredibly rewarding. And I just want to tell people all the time, like, hey, if you're not doing this, if you're not doing something that God's leading you to do, you're missing out. You're missing out. So get out there and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not about the bank account. It's not about,
That's right.
How many friends or, it's just, what kind of are we making an eternal difference? And, and so much of it is when we're gone one day, what will, our children, what will they remember?
Right.
And I think it's more about the time that we invest in one another and just those service opportunities.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's a great note to end on.
Thank you.
And again, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. It's so good to see you. I'm glad you're doing well.
It's great to see you. Tell Jinda hello. Thank you so much. Will. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming on. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
Man, what a great conversation. I hope you got as much out of that as I did. The big thing I take away from Wendy is just never too late to make a change, whether that's in parenting or in our relationships with our spouse, or in her case, making this massive career change after 50 to go from something she was very familiar with and very good at to something she had no experience with, but really to trust God's leading, trust God's prompting, and to step out. And that's something we all need to be thinking about every day is, am I doing what God's calling me to do? Am I in the right spot? How can I be in a better spot with Him? What's He asking me? What steps is He asking me to take? All the things. So I hope you got as much out of that as I did. I thought it was amazing. Hey, I wanted to remind you that if you're listening, watching, make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. I know I said that a lot, but it really helps us reach more people because it boosts how much the platforms put us out there in front of folks, especially in this demographic. So make sure you do that and let us know what you're thinking. And I want to tell you, we've got some unbelievable episodes coming up. I'm really amazed at how God's hand is on this, and the people who are saying yes to being on this podcast, this little startup thing that we're just playing with really, and what God's doing with it. So some incredible guests coming up in the next few weeks, and this isn't in any order, but just, we've got Justin Bradshaw and Rhett Bard. These are good friends of mine. They host a podcast called Armchair Authentic. They're coming up on their 100th episode. I've actually been a guest on their podcast a couple of times, and many of you have gone over there and listened to them because of that, and I'm so grateful for that. And they're going to talk about the power of story to follow up on what Jinda and I talked about a few weeks ago. And we'll get more into that on that episode, but you don't want to miss that. Rhett's going to share some of his testimony. It's incredibly powerful. And then we've got a guy named Ken Schaefer. Ken's a good buddy of mine that works for a company called Generis. And his boss, Jim Shepard, the founder of that company, was on a couple months ago, and you might remember Jim's episode. Ken's incredibly insightful, one of the smartest people I've ever talked to. Can't wait for you to hear what he has to say about aging, and what they're doing at their church around aging is really powerful. And then we've got Frank Schwartz. Frank is the president of F3 Nation. F3 is the workout group that I'm part of. It's a nationwide, actually international workout group that was founded, and he's now the president of that. And I'm so excited for you to hear from him about how they're helping guys of all ages, but especially those of us that are older, just like it's helped me incredibly over the last few months. And so that's going to be super fun. And then I'm excited to talk about Chris Bruno. Chris Bruno is an author and the founder of a thing called Restoration Project. And Chris has written a book. He's actually written several books, but a book that has really deeply touched me is a book called Sage, all about entering the sage phase of life. It's kind of geared towards men, but it's really applicable to all of us, regardless men or women. And so I can't wait to actually get to know Chris myself on that interview and have you listen in on that. It's going to be really powerful. He's incredibly wise. He's a certified therapist, and he's a wealth of knowledge. So can't wait for you to hear that. We've got so much more coming. The list is literally, I could go for 10 more minutes about all the people who are going to be on in the next few months. So tune in for that. Let us know how we can serve you. I hope this episode encouraged you, and I can't wait to see you next week. Have a great week.